We are rolling into the season once again. Our gubernatorial election will be happening next year. And then one of the candidates is joining us once again, Karrin Taylor Robson. Mrs. Robson, welcome back.
Good morning, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Let's jump into this with the endorsement. You were endorsed by President Trump. He's made it a dual endorsement with Andy Biggs. Does this water down the endorsement? Does it change the endorsement? Have you talked to the president about it?
Well, I tell you what, I am honored that he reaffirmed what he told me in December from the rally stage when he urged me to run. That's in large measure why I'm running, to support him, and he supported me, and he doubled down on that endorsement earlier this week. So I'm proud to be his partner, and I'm proud to help him with his agenda here in Arizona.
When you look at the landscape, the primary process is what I enjoy watching because it helps people in an individual party or people that will vote in the Republican Party that are independents decide which candidate most closely aligns with them. What sets you apart? What do you think will set you apart with voters from other Republicans that are either in the race or might enter the race?
Well, I am a conservative businesswoman with a record of accomplishment. I'm a problem solver, and I get things done. And I think when the voters of Arizona get to know me better, they will see that, and they will, we need a problem solver. We need an executive on the ninth floor to clean up the mess that's currently being created by the radical Katie Hobbs.
So let's go down that road. I was going to ask you a little later, but let's go down that road. What needs to change? Can you give me some specifics of how the office changes with a Karrin Taylor Robson as governor of Arizona? What changes day one, and what changes have to happen quickly?
Well, very quickly, we need leadership. We need competence and leadership on the ninth floor to manage the state's budget and manage the problems that we're facing. All you have to do is open the news every day to see the latest problems being created by Governor Hobbs. We've got money, hundreds of millions of dollars missing. We've got allegations of fraud. We read, about massive issues with education and challenges with our education system that need to be addressed. And we need a partner with President Trump to make sure our border is secure. We need a partner with President Trump to make sure that our communities are safe. I already have the endorsements of significant law enforcement agencies because they know my number one priority is the safety and security of the citizens of Arizona. That starts with a safe and secure border, and that starts with supporting our police and the rule of law and law enforcement. If we can't get that right, nothing else matters. And so that will be my priority. That's been President Trump's priority, to make sure that the people of this country are safe and secure. And that will be my priority here in Arizona, and to support him.
Interesting. I'm glad you brought that up because I want to ask a little bit more specific on funding for things. One of the things I'm going to actually be talking about next is how dramatically understaffed and underfunded that I believe DPS is, the Department of Public Safety. And if we are going to make things safer, and I take you at your word that you want to do that, how do we get the funding? How do you convince the legislature that whether it's education dollars or otherwise, that some of these priorities need dramatic funding? What needs to happen to make that happen?
Okay, government spending should prioritize what we value. And number one in my agenda will be valuing public safety and security. That's why it's my number one priority. And our law enforcement agencies have been underfunded for a long time. When I hear stories from people out on the front lines where they literally have to go into Walmart or Radio Shack or wherever, I don't even know if Radio Shack, I don't know how many Radio Shacks are around anymore, but, literally going to buy parts for radios so that they can communicate. The fact that we're having trouble recruiting people into our law enforcement agencies because we're not paying them, or we're removing a lot of the protections that they have. These are men and women who wake up every single day, leaving their houses, willing to put their life on the line to make us safe. So we have to value that sacrifice. We have to value what they're doing. And that's why I have made it very clear wherever I go and whenever I'm asked, that is our number one priority. And I'm proud to partner with President Trump because he has made the security of this country his number one priority. That's why he was elected. That's why the voters of Arizona overwhelmingly elected him president.
I was talking earlier about the enormous task of running a statewide race, but the diversity here in Arizona, how we are so densely urban in the valley and down in the Tucson area, but we also have very vast rural areas. Is it the same message in all parts of the state? Do you speak differently to what the needs are in the rural parts of Arizona, like water and other issues? And how do you talk to the entire state about your agenda and how it fits all Arizonans?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. I've spent a lot of time in rural Arizona. I just spent a full day up in Yavapai County yesterday, and you're absolutely right. The issues are very different, and therefore the solutions are very different from the urban to the rural areas, and we have to be cognizant of that. But, going back to safety and security, everybody wants safe communities, and so we will approach and deal with the needs of individual communities differently, to be sure, but the goal and the vision is the same. We want a safe and secure Arizona. You mentioned water. You mentioned education. Those things are different in different parts of the state. There's different water issues. There's different water solutions, whether you're up in Kingman or Wilcox or Yuma or the urban area. Maricopa County, Pima County, issues are very different, and the management of those issues are very, very different. Education. I am a school choice proponent. I believe parents should be empowered to pick the best educational options for their children. Rural communities have very different solutions, different situations. In many rural communities, they only have enough students to support a public school. They want the finest and best public schools they can have in rural Arizona. So, it's just different, and we have to be able to not just treat every region, urban, rural, the same, because they're not. And so we have to be willing to learn. We have to be willing to listen to and work with stakeholders wherever they are to come up with the best possible solution. And Katie Hobbs has completely failed on that account. Completely failed.
When you, this is something that I know you are very familiar with, which is development and growth. And the growth in Arizona has been challenged to a certain degree, where the governor is talking about water, especially in some developments in the West Valley. When you assess this from your professional point of view, where are we with the ability to grow and the water? Do we have the water we're going to need for the growth that's coming to Arizona?
Arizona has done a phenomenal job in water management and has for 40 plus years. And I'm proud of what the leaders of the state, decades ago have done. We're using less water today than we did 70 years ago, even though we've had, a multiple, probably 5-6-fold increase in our population. What the governor has done by essentially executive fiat is create a growth moratorium that has done nothing but exacerbate the affordability problem. And everyday Americans Arizonans are having trouble affording houses. We have more people. It's a market-driven situation. We have more people needing housing than we have housing units, right? So it drives up the housing price. We have to deliver more houses to the market so that you can take that price pressure down. And by taking huge swaths of area, the West Valley you mentioned, Buckeye, or the Southeast Valley, Queen Creek, and you take those off the market, you're simply going to further constrain the market and drive prices up. And that squeezes Arizona families. And when I'm governor, we will find solutions to that so that we can deal with this affordability crisis that Katie Hobbs has been a big part of creating.
So last question is something that's brand new, and that is the need for a lieutenant governor and a running mate. How much is that going to play a role in your campaign? Have you already started thinking about that part of the campaign? Because it's something that's new to Arizona.
It is new to Arizona, and quite frankly, I welcome it. It's something, of course, that the voters of Arizona changed via initiative. And anybody who's been around Arizona for long enough to know, we've had several secretaries of state ascend to the governor's office, which does not create the best environment for continuity of government, particularly if you have a Democrat governor and a Republican secretary of state or vice versa. So this will allow for continuity of government. I will tell you, I have had many, many people approach me wanting to be my lieutenant governor. I have had people lobby for other people to be lieutenant governor. And I have some folks I have in mind that aren't on either of those lists. But it will be somebody that has competence, qualifications, somebody that I get along with and that I know could take over the job if need be. It's somebody that I would put to work running a state agency, being very actively involved in my administration. It's somebody that would be a good and accretive partner to me and my administration and help us deliver on the promises that we make to the citizens of Arizona.
As always, I appreciate the time. If people want to learn more about your campaign, website or social media, how do they find you to learn more?
They can find me at www.KarrinForArizona.com.
Appreciate the time as always, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you, Mike.
All right, that is Karrin.
Thank you.
That is Karrin Taylor Robson, candidate for governor. A nice conversation. Check out, make sure you're an informed voter. We'll have candidates on throughout the time as we move into this election cycle.
Thanks for watching the Mike Broomhead Show. Catch up on Amazing Arizonans, a KTAR News podcast, and click the button in the middle to subscribe.